He has to tell the story about the spandex, but he left out that I also had leg warmers on. Thus was the glam rock days of the 80s and rock and roll. That's where I started. In fact, it was 13,281 days ago that I walked into my first network marketing presentation. Yes, Kirsten, my hair was down to here. I wasn't broke, I was below broke. I owed money to everyone. I was 29 years old and I needed an opportunity. Like most of us, when we start this business or this industry, we don't really know what we're looking at. I didn't have business background at the time. I didn't understand distribution. I just wanted an opportunity to change my life. So that can be different for everyone. So that's how I got started. But I started with a mindset of being a student. Not just a regular student, I wanted to be an excellent student. I took a lot of notes. I went to meet people who were more successful. Fortunately, my dad introduced me to personal development when I was very young, at the age of 16. Started listening to Earl Nightingale, a series of cassette tapes called Lead the Field. So I wasn't necessarily poor, I was just broke. I had enthusiasm about the concept of residual income because I thought it was like having a hit record. So I decided to get started, even though I didn't have a lot of money. I had to borrow money to start, and I went through the ups and downs of this industry. I ended up becoming successful, hit the top position in that company in less than a year with no experience. That company had a lot of legal problems. I ended up having to leave. I went to another company. Some big names went there. I said, great, we can be first. Went to the top of that company. First time I hit 7 figures, $1 million in earnings in that company. 3.5 years later, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, another company ended. I then was invited to a startup company. First time I heard about a binary compensation plan. And I started to study and learn the benefits of that and also the downsides of it. And I'd become sort of an expert by this time, a professional. I went from amateur to professional. But then that company failed. I'm thinking, is that the way it's always going to be? So what I'm going to do for all of you today is share a talk I don't often do in public. But I want to give you an education about why Zinzino was my choice 2 years ago after a 25-year incredible run where I became the top global money earner working all over the world, that they made a business decision to pull out of all the global markets, and I had to sit down with Stacy and make one more choice for my last run in business, and I could not make a mistake. Now, many people ask me, how do you talk to a professional in network marketing and get them to understand why Zinzino is different? Or how would you recruit a business professional? Well, let's start out by giving you all an understanding of direct selling. This industry, direct selling, according to the World Direct Selling Association, did $163.9 billion last year. That's all the companies combined. There's about 104 million distributors or partners around the world. There's 21 countries in the world where they do over $1 billion in sales. Women, you own this market. 72% of people in network marketing are women. You drive this industry. If you've ever felt that women don't get a fair shot in the world, and for many, many countries and many years they haven't, you found your home. You're leading the way. The US is the #1 global market for sales. Germany, even though you're #1 in Zinzino, there's a target on your back from America. We just have a lot more population, so given enough time, we hope to catch you. But we love the example the Germans are setting with Zinzino, because they've done some incredible things, and yet they're still accelerating the business. Retail in the US is over 34 billion. There's over 5 million people involved. When you study the industry, there's many different things that are sold through this network of home businesses, online stores today. It's just a distribution revolution. of how products are moving to the consumer, bypassing advertising, TV, radio, and all the overhead that normally comes with that. Wellness continues to be the #1 sector, followed by personal care. So choosing those sectors makes sense because obviously it's the biggest, but why is it the biggest? Because when people take a product or they try a product and it makes them feel better, look better, they get personal results, as you hear all the time with Zinzino. They naturally become emotionally attached to that and want to share that message with other people. When you take that test, when you start doing your own AI research or Google search and find out the importance of the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, you can't unlearn that. Then you realize you were out of balance. And then you realize your parents, your children, your siblings, your loved ones, your friends, they have this hidden health crisis. And it became my mission to start educating people about it. Now, let's take a bird's eye view. Let's take our emotions out of even what we're doing here. And I tell people in other companies, take your emotions out a minute. If you're unhappy there, I want to talk to you about what I've learned. See, in this industry, just like in every industry, people go from company to company. It can happen in any industry. They leave one company to get a job at another company. Well, people often leave one network marketing company, and you've met many in this room that have left one company like I have and went to another. It just happens. Now, why is it happening? Well, many times what happens is the company that they started with, the owners had a dream, and for whatever reason, they couldn't fulfill the dream. They had IT problems, they had finance problems, they couldn't find the right leaders, they didn't have the right product. So the industry is seeing a lot of internal exchange of people going company to company. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just reality. But it's also painful. I never wanted to leave my first company. Never. I thought I made it in life. When I first went to that meeting over 13,000 days ago, I remember talking to my godmother, who happened to be an Amway distributor. She told me about a friend that I used to deliver frozen food to their house. He went from school teacher to what they called a diamond. And then he went to this big home on the ocean. And I saw their success of their family, so I knew it worked. I knew it worked. So when I got involved, I thought I paid the right choice in my first company, which wasn't that one, because I thought I was first, and I got hooked by the money. I didn't really think too much about product. I didn't know to analyze ownership. I didn't think to analyze anything, but somebody told me they were making a lot of money. So I was at that age where that's all I cared about. What you need to know when you make a choice of a company is who you're going to be in business with. It's so critical. You know the vision of the founders, what the mission is. If you're not interested in that, or if they're not, you're talking to the wrong person. You need to know what they are offering. What is the offer in the market? If it's a product, does it really fill a need? Could it possibly withstand the test of time? And what about the potential of competition? Why would you get involved? Now it's about you. Can you win there? What is the opportunity? People are going to go from company to company, and they don't even know why they made the mistake. And I feel for some people because they tell me they're going to do this new thing. They tell me being first is where the money is. I said, I've been there. There's nothing wrong with trying, but most companies fail, period, in all businesses, in all industries. It's hard to make a company become a Zinzino. What I first look for is that company outside of what's already been being done in the industry? Is it something different, not easily duplicated? And that's when I learned about Zinzino's test-based nutrition. Now, I followed Zinzino since they were a coffee company. I've known people. In fact, Orion and Hilda, we knew of each other. I actually recruited a lot of their people into my other company. They recruited people back into my company. A lot of people in this room have actually been in my organizations years before in other companies. I've been doing this a long time. But what I learned here is the ownership had a vision. That starting with Orion and Hilda, they were willing to be in the field and get paid just like me, just like you. having to qualify, having to get customers. Most owners sit up in the ivory tower and tell us what to do, and they get paid in a different way. So when I saw Zinzino, I was part of a group of people that you've been meeting that were professionals that made a move to Zinzino. I call this the internal exchange. It can elevate growth quickly, but it's not going to be the reason Zinzino becomes a multi-billion-dollar company. Too many companies, they'll talk to a leader, they make a deal, they get these people to come over, the company runs up artificial growth, and guess what? They can't attract people that have never been involved in the industry. So the industry can only expand if we keep attracting new people. So one of the questions you should ask is, how attractive is what we're doing here in Zinzino, or any business you're evaluating, to people who've never been in the game? And when I saw the timing of Zinzino, when I understood the external market, and I met many of you that had never been involved in this, when I met Kesh, who 15 years ago had never done network marketing, was a medical professional, was a real estate investor. He went all the way to president. Yes, it took him a while to figure it out. He tells me in the back of the room that he still doesn't do network marketing. Amazing story, right? It's just proof that even if you're not me, or you don't have the experience of a networker, that Zinzino is your long-term home, and I'm going to prove it why you need to be here. We know there's a global hidden health crisis. The World Health Organization talked about it in the National Geographic magazine about anti-inflammation. 6.3 billion people are deficient in omega-3. To back up that information, Zinzino went out and published a study with Vitas Analytical Services, August 9, 2025. Over 590,000 dry blood spots analyzed, validated there's a huge problem, and dry blood spot testing can help identify that problem and lead you to what we need to do, which is basically take our product to come out the other side and get yourself in balance. Look at the numbers. People are taking notice. A year ago, after my first year in Zinzino, I saw the company grow to 205 million. Then we hit 363 million in 2025. Now, I'm not here giving stock advice, but I will tell you this. I did a Google search. I said, what's the percentage of growth in the Zinzino stock in the last 5 years? And actually today it was even higher than 664%, but stocks can go up and down. What's interesting is I had breakfast with our CEO, and Doug Peterson said to me, I don't really control and can't control or worry about the stock price. What I can control is running an efficient operation that's profitable and reward our shareholders. By the way, before I became president and now eligible to earn stock, I became an investor in the company because I believed in what I looked at, that this would be a company that would become a multi-billion-dollar brand. We are in momentum. According to some third-party publications, there was a Business from Home magazine, a direct selling publication, that put us at #1 in momentum. And yet, I will argue we're not yet. You haven't seen momentum. I know what momentum is. I built a team of over 1 million customers and maintained that for years. We're just at the infancy of momentum. I love that they're seeing it, but there's a bigger story at play here. And I'm going to tell you how I can prove to you that we're just at the infancy. In January, I went on ZinzinoTest.com, and I like to spend time on there, not just entering my test ID numbers, but looking at the tests per country. We hit 1.6 million in January. Now, I looked this morning, we're over 1.7 million tests. Congratulations. Now, when I was looking to join, realized I'd worked around the world. So I wanted to know, is the timing right for me to go in? Can I be first, but better, can I be right? And can I be first and right? That would be, that's it. That's a home run. That's hitting it out of the park, right? Sorry, an American analogy there. But let's look at the numbers. Orion Sali and I had this conversation about business, and we looked at each country. And I made a chart for myself, because on ZinzinoTest.com, you look at the map of the world, and it shows you the country, the number of tests, the first test score, and the second test score, showing that in 4 months, how many people have dramatic improvement in that 4 months. So I noticed, of course, the Scandinavian countries usually test much better on the first test, and then all of them improve just like around the world. America, for example, I got friends here from India, your numbers are horrible, but yet the improvements are incredible. So what I did with this chart to illustrate to my contacts that are players, I said, I want you to understand. I made a chart here based on the number of tests. Germany was in #1 place at 268,000 at the time in January. Sweden was 150, Norway 111, and so forth. And I went down to the US, was all the way down at the bottom of that list at 61,000 in January. I then looked at the populations, and I analyzed Germany's 83 million people, yet there's only 0.3%, not even 1% tested. And they're growing faster and faster without having to bring network professionals in. Now, they're smart if they come, but they're growing with the external market, proving to me that this has longevity, that we're going to keep attracting the people that have never done it before. I looked at Sweden, 10.6 million people, 150,000 tests. I compared that to America, 340 million people, only 61,000 tests. I got excited. As a business person now, with all my years of experience, I got it. We have something legitimate. We have something that's not just another pill and potion. We have serious science. No one's doing what we're doing. And I looked further into it. I said, Orion told me, Artie, we've got a number of countries that were about 1% or more tested. Now, for this analogy, I just used 1 test per person. Now, truthfully, we probably have most people on average 2 tests, right? But it doesn't matter for what I want to show you. I then put by country the countries that had the biggest percentage of tests. It was Iceland, Norway, Latvia, Sweden, Estonia, Denmark, Finland, Lithuania. But what I saw was the Scandinavian and Baltic countries, where Zinzino has operated the longest, got into the 1% category based on what I explained. Now, what I drew from that is, given enough time, we will become 1% of the market tested. It's not a stretch to believe that. That's just data analyzing and looking at the facts. Then Orion said something interesting to me. He said, Artie, do you realize that in every one of those countries, we are the #1 direct selling company? Either we have the most sales or we're really tied, maybe 1 or 2 right there. But I then said, analyze. Eventually, given time, we're solving a real problem in the world. There's a huge problem. We will eventually test 1% in every country. And then on top of that, what else? We will become the largest direct selling company in every one of those countries. So when I joined Zinzino 2 years ago, a lot of my friends didn't think it was a popular choice. They even didn't hear about it, or they thought it was too difficult to get somebody to take a test. Whatever they thought, they made a huge mistake. #1, ownership with vision of 100 million customers. Ownership willing to get paid from the pay plan. Equity opportunity. In fact, I looked at some of my friends who were in the Southern European countries where I had an apartment with Stacy at the time, and I looked at how few people were tested there. So all over Europe, all these Southern European markets and other countries, they're not even close to the 1%. Or having enough people tested like Sweden and Norway, for example. So this is huge. In fact, when we do our presentations in America, we talk about being in a pre-trend. I've heard marketing people say when a fashion or a certain type of food or something becomes a trend, a sneaker where everybody's looking for it, you probably have to have about 2.5% of the population already wearing that sneaker, or talking about that food, or wearing that fashion. The early adopters are coming in before this. But then what happens, for example, in our case, we're pre-trend, which Zinzino says all the time. We're pioneering a trend of test-based nutrition. When I looked at America, I said 340 million people, 61,000 tests. Before we become like the Scandinavian countries and Baltics, we'll have to get to 3.4 million tested. Are you early or are you late? Are you early or are you late? You're early. You need to have vision, and no one casts it better than Orion and Hilda. They got me to buy in to the craziest thought I ever had or ever believed. That I would sit with somebody and they would say, we're gonna have 100 million customers. Okay, sounds wonderful. Let's do some numbers. Would that make you something like a $40 billion company? I'm thinking, is that even a logical statement? How could you believe that? I've sat in enough meetings that people tell you what you want to hear. But then things started to change for me. I didn't know 1 billion people took supplements. I didn't know 500 million people took omega-3. I did not know that even the people that took it, like me for 3 years, would fail the test miserably. I redirected the spending on the bills I was already paying, which was that product. I was buying omega-3 from one of the biggest names in the world on it. Switched to balanced oil. In 4 months, like they said, 3.3 to 1. Increased the dosage a little bit, dropped to 2.2 to 1. But I'm still thinking, how are they ever going to go to 100 million? What's the strategy here? Well, first of all, they've been doing a couple of things. Number one, you've been hearing about acquisitions. Because there's so many companies struggling, I first tip my hat to the owners that had the dream to start that company, and I also applaud them for recognizing when it's just too difficult. Either the money's not flowing right, the profitability's shrinking, the competition's taking them out, the leaders are bailing on them, what technology issues, whatever it is, I give them credit for wanting to sit down with Zinzino and structure an arrangement that was not only good for them, because it starts with them, right, but good for their partners. Gave them a place to play and a bigger arena with a company destined for history. That's what you looked at. So when you hear these acquisitions, understand there's a lot of talent that comes in, a lot of experience like me coming to the table here. There's also corporate experience that's building up the talent base in the management. Different ideas and technology, things that Doug, his corporate team, that Orion and Hilda can draw from to make us stronger, bigger, bolder. And then I heard about this Zion acquisition and Plantionics, and I heard this story of Phytopharm, and if you were at the international event in Oslo, this was a whole different story than acquiring distribution of partners and potentially a product they might want to add to the portfolio. In fact, Doug said, Zinzino will continue to invest in future solutions in algae technology and bioreactors. Together with Zion, we intend to set up a company specializing in omega-3s under the name Phytopharm, in which Zinzino owns 55% of the shares. It will be an algae company purely focused on next-generation sustainable nutritional solutions. Then Orion said, with Plantionics and the recent acquisitions of Zion and Phytopharm, Zinzino is no longer just a global direct selling company. We're becoming a biotech leader in sustainable nutrition. We're securing the raw materials of the future and protecting our core product line for years to come. This is the forward thinking. This is the vision. Look, it's one thing to say, we're going to have 100 million customers. Tell everybody what they want to hear. It's another thing to put a plan into action and be willing to bet on yourselves. And everyone like me and these other companies realize this is a great bet. Do I believe we're going to 100 million customers? I think we're going to get there faster. That's what I think. Now, there's another reason professionals in this industry need to wake up. I've been there. I've made all the money. I had all the nice homes and toys. And yet I'm doing this again. I can't make a mistake. And I really empathize with anybody that's gone through it, but I need them to understand something. There's a different game being played in Zinzino. There's a different arena you're playing in. Now, we all start out with looking for that extra money, and that's important, to have a real opportunity to make whether it's a few €100 or dollars, a little extra money for the family, for clothing, pay off the bills, get a new car. Those things start the process. Bonuses and commissions attract us in. But what really is important here is the idea that you can become an equity holder. Get to the president level and start earning equity in Zinzino. That's really true. When Stacey and I hit president in November, we are now positioned to earn 200,000 euro, $230,000 in equity in Zinzino. We can earn those shares, and I then found out, and I don't know if this will last forever, but they offered a program. If I delay that for 5 years, they'll triple the number. That's a 600,000 euro bonus, and who knows what will happen to the stock. We've been paying a dividend for 13 straight years, so if you're a shareholder, and I'm not giving stock advice here or investment advice, but if you are, like some partners some partners of my team take their commission check and they put it in Zinzino stock every month, consistent investment. Because the dividends is what's interesting, and the future potential. Now, a friend of mine who I met over 35 years ago is a guy named Stuart Johnson. He happens to be the president of Direct Selling News magazine, and it's an industry organization that's really helping to serve the industry. He did a story in his magazine, and that was December 4, 2025, The Equity Revolution, how ownership in your direct selling company is rewriting the future of this industry. The equity revolution reflects a shift from rewarding contributions with short-term earnings for rewarding the contribution with long-term ownership. In addition to equity, Zinzino centers its business on a recurring customer revenue through subscriptions. The combination is powerful, the magazine story said. Strong consumer retention, predictable field earnings, and the opportunity for leaders to build long-term wealth. That's what third-party magazine said. Now, you know, our visionary founder, Orion Sali, was quoted in the story. Inside a typical company, the whole game is rigged. If you're not the CEO, you will never make what the CEO makes. And there can't be 3 CEOs. Sorry, dog. Well, thankfully. Equity solves that. It gives people that build the business a chance to share in what they are building.
Thank you.
Equity, think about it. When you are an equity partner, what does that mean? Number one, it creates alignment between the field and the home office. It drives retention. Dealing with the biggest problem in our industry is attrition. People give up far too soon. It strengthens the culture, giving everyone a stake or an interest in what we're building. It motivates performance and sustainabilities that short-term bonuses will never create. And finally, it fosters or encourages partnership across every major leader, against every partner with a share in Zinzino, that if we grow this business, which is our business, we can absolutely change the world. Our model is a hybrid model that represents the future of direct selling. That's what the magazine says. They're looking at what we're doing, and they're saying, of all the companies, Zinzino's hybrid model represents the future of this. In fact, he talked about the growth. Stuart said, the accelerated growth is truly remarkable, having grown from approximately $100 million in 2023 to $363 million in 2025, with the possibility of reaching $500 million in 2026. Where do you want to be on this stair step? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Now, you think, can I ever be a president? Yes, you're going to have to grow. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to be a serious student, not just a student. You have to learn personal development. You have to be uncomfortable and unhappy even where you are right now. Celebrate, you're here. It's that time to you get rewarded for this trip. But I'm not happy because I want to help my people get to where they need to go. Our business, our industry is so beautiful because it reflects one thing. You're rewarded for the success of your students. So become a good teacher. Lead by example. Imagine you can earn a reward for helping people succeed. Help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. I want to thank you for my time I had with you today. I'm so grateful. I'm so passionate. I am so in love with Zinzino. Let's go together and let's change the world. Thank you, everyone.